Scripture says about him, there was nothing in him that was false. Okay? Even his heart for the Father was right. He did things that pleased him. That was how he lived his life. He separated himself in order to spend time with God. He made it a priority in his life. We used to hear people say things all the time. I remember growing up in church, he rededicated himself to the Lord. Boy, I tell you what, the church needs to start using that word again. Every one of us ought to rededicate ourselves to the Lord. And say, you know what, I've kind of missed it. I've kind of got sidetracked. And God, I'm sorry. I just rededicate myself to you. Let me be whole again. Let me have my heart 100% upon you again. I believe we need it. One other place in Scripture, if you'll turn to Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26. Hope you're receiving this morning.
Yes.
Another place that God wants to take us, and He took Jesus, is a place of complete denial of self. A place where we no longer exist except for Him. Okay? That's not the American church. The American church wants God. They do. They want God. But they are not willing to give their everything. Sometimes we have to make a choice between doing what we want and what God is wanting out of us. In Matthew chapter 26, verse 36, then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane. And He said to the disciples, verse 36, sit here while I go and pray over there. And He took with Him Peter and two sons of Zebedee, and He began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then He said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. He went a little further and fell on His face, and He prayed, saying, O my Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Then He came to the disciples and found them sleeping. He said to Peter, what, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, the flesh is weak. Again, a second time He went away and He prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it, your will be done. And He came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were very heavy. So He left them and went away again. And He prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then He came to the disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand. The Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. Jesus is getting ready to go to the cross. Most of us know about this text and what it means. And here it is, Jesus is getting ready to go to the cross. And He's having in His final, He's already always separated Himself to draw strength from the Father. And this is the greatest task He's ever taken on as a man. Even though He's 100% God, He still operated in humanity. And here He is, as a man, coming to the oil press, which is what Gethsemane means, a place where olives were crushed and ground into oil. But it was about to become the place where Jesus would make the decision to be crushed in His own life. And as painful as it was for Jesus to prepare His heart for the cross, I've grown to love this passage. And the reason I love this passage is because it's about His humanity. You see the humanity of Christ in this passage. See, if He's God in a distance and He says, do this, and with no example, that we might be able to justify ourselves and we don't have any right example. God, you never did what we do in this life, but God did. And He sent His Son to do it and to live perfectly and to surrender His perfect will, or His human will, over to God's perfect will. And here He is in His absolute humanity, and He said, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. And He prays about the cup that He must drink. He prayed, if it's possible, let this cup pass away from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. If you haven't been to this oil press yet in your Christian journey, you will. You'll come to a place in your life, I believe this with all my heart, where it's not the cross of Calvary you're going to get on, but it's some other place in your life that says, this is what I want to do. This is what He wants me to do. And there's going to be a place in your life where you have to say, God, I surrender myself to You. I give myself to You. This past year, I was at that place of Gethsemane. I was just there. I had to come to a place and say, God, I started this with You. I'm going to finish this with You. I surrender my will to Yours. And we're never going to be disappointed when we surrender ourselves to Him to do His complete will. He does have the best will. He does have the best thing in mind for us. But in our humanity, we can't see it. You can't sense it, and you can't know it necessarily in your natural man. Your flesh, your senses are saying one thing, that what you want to do is one thing, and what God wants you to do is another. God's gracious, He's kind, He's gentle to us, He loves us, He's merciful to us, He takes us into an abundant life, but then He takes us to a cross periodically. He says you're going to have to make a choice. Your life, my life. Okay? And for Christ, it was, He came to a place in His humanity that what He wanted to do, even though He knew He was born to take on the sins of the whole world, He was born for that purpose, and He understood that, and He knew that going into this thing. But here He is at the crossroads. He said, you got another cup, I want to know about it. You got another plan, I want to know about it. And I believe we have the right as humans to say, God, if you got something else, I want to know, because you're in a relationship with me. But when He comes to you and He says, no, this is the one. This marriage is the one. This church is the one. This job you're at is the one. You have to say, Lord, here I am. Do in me what You must do, what You want to do. There are things in our life that we want that are not good for us. You can see it. There are relationships that I've had in my life that the Lord knocked on my heart, but that's not good. That is not the one. And I'm thankful for that today. I had a dream one time, but when I was speaking to single people. I was single for the first 29 years of my life, minus a year. And I remember, every single guy wants a wife, right? Am I wrong? No. Unless, anyway. And so it's